Well, let's look at classical conditioning, World War II and Japanese Army. Okay, so what they would do to get the Japanese soldiers to learn to kill an enemy soldier is they would put the Japanese soldier in a trench with a Chinese prisoner of war, and they would cheer, the rest of his soldiers would cheer them on in order to motivate him to kill. Okay? So you learn violence and pleasure, violence and validation, right? And so then Grossman says, well, it's the same thing in the media. It's learned associations. Think about all the videos that you can look on YouTube of kids filming violence. There was that one where the bus driver was beaten up, and what were the kids weren't helping. They were all filming it, right? Not doing anything, okay? And you even look, kids laugh at violence too. Maybe sometimes it makes them uncomfortable, but they do, right? If they exposed to it a lot, okay? And he makes this statement in the article, and he says, adolescents going to the movies, right? They learn violence, and it's associated with popcorn, soda, and the smell of their girlfriend's perfume. Learned associations, right? For that particular subset of individuals. How is that any different than when we teach sleep hygiene? We want people to associate bedtime, their bed with sleep. And if you're not going to sleep, get up and do something else because you don't want that association. It's the same thing, right? So operant conditioning. Military uses flight simulators, shooting simulators, things like that, okay? Same thing, violent first-person shooter games. The Jonesboro shooter shot 27 times at over 100 yards and hit 15 people, okay? Now, one of them was a hunter, the one who was a little bit more on the antisocial conduct disorder realm. He was more antisocial, and he was also a hunter. So that could explain some of it too, but that's pretty good. And they were first-person shooter game players all the time, okay? And then role models, drill sergeants, things like that, okay, in the military. How is that anything different than the copycat shooters? Getting a lot of attention in the media, okay? It's hard to look at this and say this is 100% scientifically accurate because a lot of times these school shooters commit suicide so we can't talk to them. There is a documentary on Netflix, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's about school shooters, and it talks about some of the ones that committed violence in schools. And one of the guys in there, one of the kids in there talks about that the first time his dad said, "I love you," was the day that he was in prison, the first day he was in prison after the incident. Okay, I'm not saying that everyone's missing hugs and kisses and love, but that does certainly point to the fact of that type of bond. They're disenfranchised from that connection, okay? And so we can look at all this, make assertions. It's kind of another tick off the threat assessment sheet, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Okay, so I want to show this video game promotional video. This was 2007, 2008. It's for Gears of War. I want you to look at the video game play and how it's paired to the music. I didn't pair it, Microsoft did. Just watch it and get your opinion.
Children waiting for the day they feel good, and listen. Went to school and I was very nervous. No one knew me, no one knew me. Hello teacher, tell me what's my lesson. Look right through me, look right through me. And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. The people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world.
Okay, so what'd you hear?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. Whoever put that together is horribly brilliant. I don't know, but think about that. That is a promotional video for that, and the images are timed very perfectly to what's going on. Behavioral rehearsal, that's what it is. It's behavioral rehearsal of the fantasies that they may have. Now, if that doesn't bother you, there's a video game that you can download called Super Columbine Massacre. Show you a quick video. It's free. The graphics are really rudimentary. When they did studies on virtual reality therapy for phobias, they found that even if the graphics aren't perfect, it still has a pretty good impact. Okay, so we look at Gears of War; those are pretty good graphics, and we look at this, and it's an RPG game. It's not very good, but the impact is still the same.
Well, should violent video games be made illegal? You can email us your opinion at sendit.
Many kids spend a lot of time on their computers nowadays playing video games. Super Columbine Massacre is one of the games they're playing. 90,000 free copies of it were downloaded off the internet just last week.
And a new trend in video games. These are games produced to disturb and hopefully educate players. They're free, they're downloaded off the internet. They're games like Super Columbine Massacre RPG.
You may have guessed that it is based on the murder of 13 people at Columbine High School in Colorado in 1999. In the game, the player assumes the identity of one of the killers, Eric Harris or Dylan Klebold. The player goes on to overcome certain obstacles to commit the crime. He then dies and battles demons in hell.
In these kinds of games, there's so much interactiveness, and that's what the fear level comes up. I mean, you watch a film, you read a book, you're trying to be more educated about something. Here, you're actually conducting the murders yourself.
Video games are just another form of medium. Violent video games simply are not the problem.
It could just be another tool that when we pile them all together would force our schools to look for causes, things like this.
I see no way that you could in any way create the mindset that this was anything other than a really bad attempt to make money.
The notion that a video game about Columbine, no matter its content, no matter how it presents the events, would automatically be offensive and couldn't possibly be productive is an interesting problem, an interesting cultural problem that we should really look at more closely. I think what's going on is that video games are still struggling to be seen as a medium and not just a distraction, not just a kind of leisure time activity that you use to waste time.
I personally don't care for it. I think it takes kids down a path of things being not normal, and if they do that long enough, they may believe that it is normal.
It's not a game, really. Play is really a rudimentary part.
And I think if you play this game, you'll kind of realize, oh, maybe this isn't so cool.
Why would you even make a video game that would relate to something so tragic? I just don't understand why would we continue on kind of putting it in people's faces as if it was a joke or something.
You don't play this game and feel, oh, I'm really glad to be enacting this. You feel very conflicted and extremely uncomfortable, and that's a perspective I think that's worthwhile.
I've played it or tried to play it, but we couldn't get past the part where you bomb the cafeteria.
So I'm sure for those of you that do see kids, and which I'm guessing is a lot of people in here, I lost my microphone, hold on. You ask what video games they play, right? I know when I ask, I'm always like, please say Oregon Trail, please say Oregon Trail. And it never happens. But when they say Minecraft, I'm like, thank God. Okay? And you have to ask what's some of the video games that they play, why do they like them, and what is it about it, and then probably some of those themes of justice or injustice or trying to compensate for some type of feelings of inadequacy or powerlessness seems maybe not in those words that they use, obviously, but probably is a theme that comes up. So it's something to look at. So let's look at some of the warning signs, risk factors, things like that. So points to remember: violent people do not just snap, okay? We know that. They almost always show warning signs prior to the act, whether we see them or not, right? And we'll look at some of those. And some of them are missed. There's a book called The Gift of Fear by Gavin DeBecker. If you get that weird feeling, sometimes we override those and think everything's okay. Secret Service found that in more than 75% of the incidents, the attacker planned the attack and told people before, told peers. Okay, and what we find is that either the kids say, well, I didn't think they were serious, they say stuff like that all the time, or I wanted to see what was really going to happen, or there's that code of silence. No one's going to tell anybody anything, okay? But if they're not telling other people, they certainly are posting online. And social media is becoming more and more of an issue. It's pretty sad when some of my treatment plans for adolescents is, okay, which social media app are you going to delete this week, right? Because people are now posting a lot more online. There's the bullying issue, but also they're posting cutting themselves and posting that online and having friends comment about that, and it's becoming more and more prevalent. So if they're not talking to people out loud, they're certainly posting it somewhere online. So obviously when we look at developmental issues, in general, adolescents are impulsive, right? Mostly because of the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe's not fully developed yet, so that impulse control decision making is not 100%. So therefore they fail to consider consequences of their actions, but kids are also very sensitive to rejection in general, okay? So if we have these things in normal adolescence anyway, it may be to the extreme case in some of these individuals that have those fantasies. There may be attachment problems, and we'll see that a lot, okay? And then poor coping skills and social skills are obvious. Okay, and kids generally don't have great coping skills because they're little. They haven't had that life experience yet, although I've had some adolescents come in and go, you could teach your mom and dad a few things. But in general, okay, that's what we see generally in adolescence. So let's talk about the role of fantasies. With these individuals that commit these violent acts, there's an early development of violent themes. We'll look at Kazmierczak. He watched violent videos from a very young age with his mom. That was their hobby together. Okay, you think that probably played a role? It did, and we'll see kind of what he did. So it crystallizes those fantasies. It becomes a desensitization to the violence, and like I said before, for some it's a compensation. I'm going to get back at you, okay, for what you did to me. So it's a compensation for inadequacy and powerless. And through the media, through all of that, reading, writing, there's behavioral rehearsal of those violent acts. There may be some verbal warning signs, so there may be the verbalizing of the violent plan. They may make direct or indirect threats to others. Sometimes it could be a direct threat, like I am going to kill you, or don't go to the lunchroom at 12:30 tomorrow. Something big is going to happen. Those types of indirect threats. Homicidal, suicidal, hopeless statements are an obvious warning sign. Excessive profanity, and when I mean excessive profanity, I mean excessive profanity in ways that almost don't make sense. I have a copy of a play here and I'll pass it around, Cho from Virginia Tech. He would write plays, and you can find them online, and when you read them, they're very disturbing. And he uses profanity in ways that I don't know how to describe it, you'll read it, okay? And it's excessive. Okay, so if you would like, I can pass it around and you can look through it, but it just gives you an idea of kind of the writing style and what they're saying. statements about violent behavior, fantasies, and plans, and all of this is leakage. Whether they're posting it online, writing it in their journal, doing a speech in class about how to make a bomb, those types of things. That's all leakage, that's all indicating something, that's all a warning sign. Taken by itself, fine. And a whole host of things, when we start linking them together, it shows a pretty clear picture. So let's look at Kip Kinkle in 1998. Okay, let's look at a little bit of his history. This is after he was arrested. Kip, for me, is a struggle to look at because it's very hard to determine whether this kid has conduct disorder moving into an antisocial personality disorder. When you look at his family history, there's certainly a lot of psychosis in his background. And so it's difficult to determine, okay? But you'll see. He's going to try to convince the psychiatrist for the court order evaluation that he's psychotic and that he has early onset schizophrenia. So he's 15 years old at the time that he killed both of his parents and attacked his school. Let's look at his family environment. He struggled with his dad. His dad, both of them were teachers, and you can find a lot of this information also too on Frontline. Frontline did an expose on the entire family, has videos, letters from his sister and everything, and it has a complete timeline of some of those events. It's very interesting. His dad valued academics and athletics. Kip wasn't very good at athletics. He was on the football team, but his dad made him, and he sat on the bench. His parents were both English teachers, and they had gone abroad when he was very young to teach in Spain. And then he had some problems there, and then he came back to the States after first grade and had some academic problems there. His parents disagreed on how to handle him. His older sister was a great athlete and student. In fact, you watch home videos of the family, and she's doing cartwheels. She had, I think, a scholarship for cheerleading to a college. Very graceful. And then Kip's kind of the awkward little kid. They throw him a ball, he can't quite catch it, things like that. He's just kind of a normal kid when you look at him, but a little goofy, not very coordinated. His father had a pretty bad temper and was verbally abusive, never physical, from what we can tell in the reports. His mother was emotionally unstable. Some reports, the sister said that she would get totally hysterical, unreasonably hysterical. It scared me sometimes when we look at the mom. But neither one of them, when you look at the family in general, you don't look at the family and go, okay, that's a bad family with really bad parenting styles. When you look at it, yeah, there's some issues, but nothing insurmountable. There's a family medical history that's very interesting. The paternal great uncle was delusional. He attacked an officer with a knife during one arrest. There was a maternal cousin that thought he was the second coming of Christ, so he built a bomb and threatened people at work. A maternal cousin diagnosed with schizophrenia and suicidal, and then so in total 8 relatives on mom's side and several others on dad's side had actually been institutionalized. So which lends credence to the fact that we're looking at something on the psychotic spectrum, but some of his behavior isn't quite consistent with early onset schizophrenia, but it does point to the fact that there is a mental health issue genetically in the family. So in preschool, like I said, his family moves to Spain for a year. He had some academic problems and bullied. And he repeated the first grade when he came back. He had some language difficulties. Well, obviously, right? He's going from 2 different countries, having some problems there. He was diagnosed dyslexic in the 4th grade. Interesting, though, he spelled his last name wrong as late as the 8th grade. So had some academic problems. Kids with academic problems aren't violent, but who are the ones that get a lot of attention sometimes in schools for being disruptive are the kids with academic problems because they're not engaged. They're having a difficult time, so what do they do to get attention, right? But he had a great ability in science and math. How he did at school, socially mixed. Some thought that he was a class clown and friendly. Others thought that he was scary and threatening. He was on the football team, but sat on the bench, so he wasn't engaged in sports. And he writes in his diary that he feels, I feel like everyone is against me, but no one ever makes fun of me. And in fact, when we look at some of the kids in his class, other accounts, they would say that he was the bully.